Okay. Good morning. We'll call this meeting of the Ellis County Commission to order. All will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Neil Younger,
Present.
Chair Nathan Liker,
Here.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Any changes to the order of business?
I don't have any.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. The prior minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look through the prior minutes? Minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
Good.
Nope. Okay. The consent agenda. Any questions over that?
I have none.
Nope. I'll move to approve consent agenda items A through G.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda is approved. Issues from persons not on the order of business. Is there anyone from the public that wish to speak at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Introduction of new employees.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Dustin Barnes, Ellis County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to introduce our newest hires to you, Alex Nunnally and Cade Rittenhouse, both detention officer ones, starting in the jail.
Good deal. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Gita Schrader, Ellis County EMS Director. I have our new employee, Briley German, with us. She's from Kinsley, and she's been EMT for 3 years, and she just completed her fire science degree, and I think somebody else is trying to recruit her as well, so.
All right. Well, welcome on.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have planning and zoning appointments. Justin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Justin Craig, Environmental Services Director. So before you this morning, the Joint Planning Commission has two members, Keith Guston and Ross Meter, whose terms expire on June 30th, 2024. They have both affirmed that they would like to renew and volunteer for new three-year terms, so I just have that before you today for your consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
No question. I appreciate the volunteers to these commissions and that they're willing to serve again. So appreciate it.
That's what it's all about. Volunteer, volunteer.
These are both good gentlemen, and I appreciate their service.
Mhm.
So, I move the commission reappoint Keith Guston and Russ Mater to 3-year terms on the Joint Planning Commission, effective July 1st, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. They are reappointed.
Thank you.
Next, we have Whispering Gales LLC preliminary plat application. Justin.
All right, so Justin Craig, Environmental Services Director. So before you this morning, in April of 2024, James Mice, on behalf of Gale Lee, the Whispering Gales LLC, submitted a preliminary plat application to the Ellis County Environmental Office to create the Whispering Gales Addition. This addition is generally located on the northeast of the intersection of I-70 and Yosemite Avenue. The land is currently zoned as flexed and is being used for agricultural purposes. This addition would include the creation of 18 parcels, residential parcels, one flex zone parcel and one reserve parcel that will be dedicated to stormwater retention. Most of the parcels are 5 acres plus or minus in size. The flex parcel, 2 of the residential parcels, and the reserve parcel are approximately 10 acres plus or minus in size. All the required documents have been submitted, the fees were paid, the neighboring landowners and those with interest were notified, and a public hearing was held on May 29, 2024. There were no public comments made at the public hearing, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has approved the preliminary plat application as submitted. And then according to the adopted Ellis County subdivision regulations, the governing body, at its request, may require that it must approve the preliminary plat as well before the applicant can submit a final plat application. And here today also is James Mice for any questions you may have
Okay.
on the plat itself. Stand for any questions.
Questions?
Unless James would have a problem coming up and just going through a little bit what you did on the Ellis County Planning meeting.
Morning, Commissioners. James Mice, Land Surveyor, Driggs Design Group. I'm the land surveyor who prepared the plat for Whispering Gales. As Justin alluded to, we took it to the Planning Commission last week and we answered some questions for them. Notably, one of the questions that came up was the streets. So we know right now the county Public Works does not have a desire to add more miles to maintain to what they're maintaining. So these are going to be coming in as private streets. And there was a question about access for government employees. So here's, if I can read what's on the face of the plat, that way you guys have an understanding of it. So the private streets as reflected upon this subdivision plat and being labeled as Anthony Avenue and Leader Lane have not been dedicated to the public for public access, nor have they been accepted by Ellis County as public improvements. The streets, streetlights, traffic control devices, sidewalks, and other improvements within the private street shall be maintained by the Property Owners Association within the subdivision. The private streets shall always be open to emergency vehicles, public and private utility service personnel, the United States Postal Service, governmental employees in pursuit of their official duties, and licensees and guests of the owners of the subdivision. Let's see. The owners of the lots served by the private streets within this plat agree to release, indemnify, defend, and hold harmless any governmental entity for damages to private improvements within the private streets occasioned by the reasonable use thereof for governmental entity for governmental purposes, and to release, indemnify, defend, and hold harmless any governmental entity for damages arising from the condition of the private streets. The maintenance of the private street improvements shall not be the responsibility of Ellis County. So that's kind of how that's going to be handled. So there will be a homeowners association consisting of all the lot owners out there. It'll be an LLC, so it'll be a registered company. They'll establish their dues based off what they want to use the homeowners association for to maintain the roads, everything like that. But I'm happy to answer any further questions that you may have.
That was one of I was at the zoning meeting the other day, and that was of the two questions I was going to have. That was one of them, just to again readdress that the county does not want any additional roads. We've had subdivisions being created in the county in the past where the homeowners have been promised a county road and the county takes it over, and now we're stuck with trying to maintain roads that we wouldn't build ourselves. So appreciate addressing that, and I just want to continue throughout this process to make it clear that these are not county roads.
Yep, they will be constructed to county standards if at some point in the future, if the homeowners want to petition the county to maybe accept them, at least there's documentation that they were built to county standards at this time. So, but they will be private.
This is more maybe a question for Bill. It's kind of redundant to the question, but because we have townships. Our townships do not maintain roads, but some counties do. I don't know if, does there need to be any language that a township would not be responsible for the road either?
No.
Okay.
No, our townships have no responsibility for roads. That would date back to when the Rural Township Act was passed. When was that, Brandon? That's been a long time. Been a long time ago. Some counties opted in and some didn't. Ellis County opted in.
Okay. Because I think that would be Buckeye Township, I believe. And they do have, they're a little bit more active than the other townships with the treasurer.
Now, I believe Russell County, for example, still has townships that maintain roads.
Okay.
Brendan McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director. So that's correct. Russell County is a county township road system. So there's 3 road systems in the county. There's county unit, which Ellis County is, where we maintain everything outside of incorporated city limits. Then there's county township, where the county maintains everything on their FAS routes and any large drainage structures on any roadway outside of incorporated city limits. And the township takes care of the rest of those. And then there's the rural county highway unit system, which is county township, but with more steps. The county does everything, but they have budget books for each individual township, and it's a lot more paperwork. So we're county unit, so we maintain everything outside of incorporated city limits. That is public.
Okay. Thank you for that caveat.
Correct. I was going to add that part.
Okay. Brendan, have you been contacted or in contact with Triggs on what is expected of a road?
Yes. We've been in contact back here in April and before then when it was first brought up as potential coming down the pipeline thereabouts. So we made some suggestions on some of the roadways and the routing, and they've followed all of those, including the engineering study for traffic control measures in the area.
Okay.
Would anything additional, because Yosemite is a well-traveled road anyway, so we're looking at Yosemite and Catherine Road, those two roads being a little bit more traveled.
Correct. So there were some changes. I don't know if they were shown in the plat, the traffic control, because I wasn't at that meeting, but there is a sheet that was attached with that when I reviewed it, where it had reviewed all the traffic control patterns in there and all the recommended signage and drainage structures they're putting throughout that development.
What is our right-of-way on Yosemite and Catherine Road in that area?
Yosemite is 66 feet, 60 or 66 feet, and Catherine, I did not look that up this morning. It may be shown in the plat if you zoom in up there. Did that clarify that on your drawing? Yeah, so it'd be 60 feet there, 30 on either side.
Okay. Brendan, is that enough if for future development from the county side or standpoint?
Yes, that's pretty fair for what we have for majority of our roadways is 60 feet. Especially our larger, more traveled roads, they're 60 or 66 feet. There's still a handful that are only 40 feet that are original, published by statute in the early 1900s.
Gotcha.
That were never improved and had additional right-of-way added to them.
What about we've got current development up in that area. If this is developed according to, we're going to have increased drainage. I know we have a retention pond in here, but I guess the question would be handling stormwater runoff in our 60-foot right-of-way ditches.
I do not foresee that being an issue because all of that whole field breaks towards the southeast. So all the majority of the water that lands in that development should be carried back to the southeast where they have a stormwater detention pond.
Okay.
So at this point in time, don't see any impacts.
What about the water coming from the north on the north side of the road?
The north side, it would just continue down across and then cross the road and the crossroad pipes that are there.
Okay.
And then
But we would not be creating any obstructions that could back up that cross pipe.
Not according to the plat.
Okay.
So there'd be no significant changes to any of the drainage structures that the county currently has.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless you have any other questions for Brendan while he's up here?
I just had visited with James after the meeting the other night there, and I'm glad they done a traffic study, so they got stop signs so they don't come back on the county and say, hey, we need a stop sign. So that was all done properly. Thank you.
Our engineers did a traffic study and a drainage study. So all the interior streets that are going to be constructed, they've been designed to carry all the water to what is labeled as Reserve A. That's where the stormwater detention area is going to be. So we weren't diverting any additional water into the county roads. And then the current county road ditches will be able to handle what they've always handled.
With the retention area there, that's a natural low-lying area. By increasing the water flow to that area, are we going to look at any potential detrimental causes on the other side with interstate being on the south side?
No, that was part of the drainage study. So the way the pond is going to be designed, it's going to have two elevations. So the developer desired to have a spot that might be able to contain like fish and aquatic life year-round. So there's going to be a deeper portion that's designed to hold water year-round. And then the remainder of the pond is going to be more of what you would see around town and commercial areas where the water flows in and then it's released via a control device. In this case, it's an earthen weir that's been covered with a large stone So as the water flows in, it's going to be regulated as to the amount leaving. So the way we figure that is the amount of water leaving right now, it won't leave any faster after development has occurred. So
Okay.
it's designed to, not exactly if it's 10-year, 50-year, whatever it is, but the standard that has been set out, so.
Okay.
Okay, and then also the part that there's been some emails being distributed that these other people are gonna run out of water. I talked to the individual that drilled these, and his response was, "Oh my God, they'll not ever run out of water." So I know there's some.
Yeah, there always will be, especially when everybody's on private wells, and it is kind of a high-density area. You see something similar south of Hayes and Big Creek Estates where everything's on private water wells. There was some concern down there as well at a time with some new development that occurred. But so Karst Well Service is the one who drilled the wells. That's part of the reason the application started last year, and we're just coming to you a little over a year later, is we've been on the list to get some wells drilled out there before we came to you, because we wanted to know we had good water supply since there's not a public supply available. It's actually on the property, it's just not, they're not able to, they're not releasing water meters. So, Karst Well Service, of the 3 wells he drilled, he was saying he hit water in the, about 40 feet. They pushed casings to about 80 to 90 feet. And all the wells were getting 20 plus gallons per minute, which is more than sufficient for a domestic supply in a home. And there will be, so this is a preliminary plat. You haven't seen them yet, but along with the final plat, when we bring that back to you at some time in the future, we'll have the dedication papers. So those will spell out all the covenants and restrictions that'll apply to this subdivision. And in there, the developer is already talking about having restrictions on irrigation and things like that. So these are larger lots, 4 to 5 acres. We don't want somebody planting Kentucky bluegrass and then watering it. So there's going to be language in the dedication papers to limit irrigation, things like that.
Okay. That clarified that.
Yep.
Yes, those were some of my questions too. We have been contacted, and when I was at the planning, I didn't, that was one of the questions I don't think was well addressed, just some of the water concerns, because obviously they're not going to be able to hook up to the city. They're too far away from Hayes or Ellis to be able to connect to city water, and the rural water districts right now are not. So one of my thoughts or concerns was, with wells, contamination issues. We've seen that again in the county, where a private well has become contaminated, and what kind of solutions are available, or is the county responsible at some point? Because with this flex to the west there's kind of some oil. I don't know if they store oil there or what that is, and then there's another flex that could be light industrial. And so that was kind of my concern of having light industrial right next and within a housing development, again, with potential contamination, if there's anything that needs to be addressed at a county level on those issues.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can future-proof it. I can tell you that we have test results and we can make those available for the water that is from the wells they've drilled. Nothing out of the ordinary, it's hard water, but it's pretty normal. So we can provide test results on that. As far as trying to plan into the future and what may happen with contamination, like I said, rural water is on the property. If it ever became a need, I'm sure the homeowners could petition the, right now it's Trigo Rural Water 2, maybe work with them to get something for the subdivision in the future if there were some water issues. But
Okay.
So is it planned for each lot to have its own well, or are you looking at the homeowners association having a shared well system?
each lot will have its own well.
Okay, so that's part of my concern on it, is because the more times we poke holes in the ground for water, the more chances we have for problems. And water is a valuable commodity, as everybody's well aware. So I know there are some larger lots. The more times we have residential areas and septic systems, is there any potential for having a concentrated nitrate problem or something from a septic system leaching into this? Because there's a lot of rock in this area.
So I can tell you from the well driller, they didn't hit any rock in this area. It's in the low enough, it's still in the Big Creek River bottom. So as you start heading north, you get into rock, but here there was no rock.
Okay.
So, Justin, I think for septic, if there's plenty of room on each lot for all the proper setbacks from property lines, from water wells, from buildings, things like that. So, but we have not considered a semi-public water system for this.
Okay. God, I lost my train of thought on that. I guess next thing on that is, I guess it's preliminary. We can address that here a little later if I come back to it. I apologize.
Is there anything with water rights, and again, this might be Bill's question, again, through these emails that we've gotten, some are concerned about their water rights, and this does sit a little lower, so water's coming down and drilling out 20 more wells potentially. Is there any, I guess, potential of water rights for people that already live there being abused or violated, or where those restrictions, could the state say, well, first in time, first in right, you need to shut off your property water wells so that way the people north and in higher elevations get their water rights first?
Well, they would, and excuse me, Bill Jeter, County Councilor, I didn't say that before, but, well, each landowner would have the right to appropriate water from their property for domestic purposes.
Mm-hmm.
If their wells were affected by other wells in the area that were using water for a domestic purpose, I'm not sure there's any relief there.
Okay. Okay.
I do have the.
It wouldn't be, it certainly could be a consideration in whether you approve the plat or not, but it wouldn't be the county's issue per se.
Okay. Okay.
Anytime anybody builds in a rural area and relies on a domestic well, then you're obviously taking some risk that at some point you may not have water.
But what we don't want to cause is somebody up or downstream because of our decision to run them out of
Well,
water.
but there's no way you'd ever know that
Okay,
now.
gotcha. Have these wells that have currently been drilled, have they been test pumped multiple times to see how they hold up and how they affect the neighboring areas?
That I'm not aware of. I'll have to get with the well driller and the developer and get you more information on that.
Okay. Because if they're fresh wells, we may not know how they're, and there again, it's still not our concern, but for the neighboring landowners to see if they've been properly tested.
Yeah, I can coordinate with the developer and the well driller on that and see if I can bring you some more information. I'll get it to Justin
Okay.
so he can share it with you.
Okay.
Justin, I guess questions for you on just on this process. So this area was flex zone. Did it have to go through a zoning change of any sort to?
No, I spoke with Mr. Jeter on that, and then the way our plating application is set up, it can all be done together.
Okay. So this process we're in now is a preliminary plating, so approval here, assuming that it goes to, what's the next steps along this process?
The next step would be for James to submit a final plat application, and we will take that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There's
Okay.
no public hearing required. It'll just be a regular meeting. And we'll go from there, and then once they approve it, or once they make their recommendation, I'll come back and present it here again for the final approval of the final plat application.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's, that would be through that would be kind of the end of it, unless from that final plat, we send it back to planning or something, but otherwise, if it's approved throughout that process, that's the approval then. Okay.
So, yes.
Okay.
They're putting tight enough restrictions on there that they, like say, they don't want to have a bluegrass yard out there, and they're using some common sense on it, and the water comes for drinking and bathing first before other deals. So, as Commissioner Liker said, pumping them wells, that's gonna be hard to get a drawdown on a neighbor or, two neighbors away. So that's gonna be pretty tough to do, just to see what the drawdown would be. They're gonna have to be people talking with each other and a long process, but it can be done.
And
We watch it in western Kansas.
Just we have.
And usually when the neighbors are close like that, I'll try to work closely with them when somebody wants to drill a well and the septic could be coming, like, don't put your well as
Right.
close as you can to the property line because their septic may be here, and you limit each other on what you can do. We've seen that in other developments.
I guess would be my recommendations as I plan to approve this preliminary plat as it goes back, as you work on the final plat and it goes back to our planning and zoning, that some of these questions about water, the covenants that will be put in and out there, that those are spelled out a little bit more and have the planning committee kind of readdress a lot of those things and take into consideration some of these questions at the neighboring people. But I think you've addressed it pretty well at this point. I just think that needs to be kind of the focus of the steps going forward, I think.
Other than that, I'll agree with Mr. Burgess that I'll probably pre-approve this. When you come back with the planning and zoning on final approval, my only recommendation with the zoning commission, and they'll present it as such, but if they could bring some of the discussion highlights that they've had considering this, would be beneficial to address the public with.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, and to please the other individuals that are out there, maybe the well driller can put a test pump on there, and if he's pulling 20 gallon a minute, see what the drawdown is on that particular well, or two wells if he's got two test pumps. I think the people out there would be satisfied then. So.
And are they, I think they usually don't have, the planning committee, they usually don't have one in June, but do we know if they will convene or will they wait till July?
Be waiting till July. They decided that
Okay,
the other night.
okay. Well, with that, I'll move to approve the recommendations of change to the Whispering Gales LLC preliminary plat application.
Okay, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Preliminaries approved.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Justin. Thanks, James.
Okay. Next, we have Bridge Deck Mill and Overlay Construction.
Morning, Commissioners. Brendan McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director.
Morning.
So before you is the construction, engineering, inspection agreement for FAS 690 and 700, which, as you guys are aware, those previously approved for mill and overlay back here in March. Penco was awarded the design and the inspection of the original to come up with a plan for repairs to that bridge. We'd like to continue with them to do the CE portion of the project. So that's $55,000 with the total construction costs and the design costs as well. It's right around just under $630,000. In our capital plan, we had estimated $900,000 for both projects. Since we were able to combine them together and not limit the contractor to do one then the other or both at the same time, we've realized some pretty good savings on that, about $270,000. So we're still way under budget for the repairs for that roadway.
That's excellent. Any questions?
Nope, it's well needed. It's kind of a bounce there, but
Yeah.
it takes time and money.
Yep, easy to approve when you're under budget, so.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve purchase order number 7826 for the construction engineering agreement from Penco Engineering for bridge deck rehabilitation.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, next we have access control equipment for the Public Works Building.
Morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. Next item on your agenda is to discuss and potentially approve the access control at the new Public Works facility. As the process went through with the construction of the new facility, the bidding included all of the labor, conduit, and cable, and all the outlet and junction boxes to install the access control at the building. However, due to the type of equipment and it being tied with several other, well, actually essentially almost every other facility in the county for the access, the card readers to the buildings, the Banker Security, which is the vendor that the IT department uses to do that, that was excluded out of the bid and is here before you for approval. The work won't get done until probably the last couple of weeks of the project because it's kind of one of those finishing items that go on, kind of like face plates after you paint. But the company's wanting to get the PO approved now so that way they can order the equipment and have everything on site plenty of time in advance before when it's needed for installation. So before you today is the approval for that equipment, and basically what that is it's actually the card readers that are on the wall, and then the network products that are up in the IT room, the cards and everything that link back with our server equipment, so to speak. Mike is here for the IT department if you have any technical questions that may arise that I can't answer, but like I say, just the approval for all the equipment to be installed later on with the project. I have no questions.
Mr. Burgess?
Not particularly. One of the, I guess it's kind of semi-related to this. One of the concerns that I guess has become raising to me is 183 as people are driving on 183 and as county employees now, as we move out there, as they're entering into our facility, how much that backs up traffic, not expecting people to be turning in there. And I'm pulling up my Google map to see how distant the gate is. So if we have 2 or 3 county employees pulling in, but that third vehicle's kind of...
There won't be any gates off of 183. The gates that are part of this project are the 2 gates that are on the north and south part of the building with the fenced-in area of the facility.
Okay.
So there's no gate that's going to hold up any traffic. It's just going to be the traffic itself on 183 that would hold up anybody turning into the facility.
Okay.
And Brendan's probably here to discuss because he had the conversations with KDOT on that.
Yes.
Correct. Yes. So like Darren said, the gate's actually in the building to get into the yard. For the pumper and the oil wells, they do not have to go through any gates to access any of their facilities. There's a road outside of our fenced-in backyard.
Okay.
In addition to that, discussions have been had with KDOT that they'll be looking at in the future reducing the speed limit from 65 to as more is built up there.
Yeah.
Since we'll be using that roadway, it's our only access out with our equipment.
Right.
And we will be able to utilize the shoulder, bringing our equipment out, so we're not impacting the driving lanes. So that's something that they're aware of and they're looking into.
Yeah. Do we know how far? Because the other concern, it's not with this, but going up further north where feedlot, where our bypass now connects, and as more traffic is starting to use that and realize that's open and moving, again, traffic that's kind of used to using 183 coming from Plainville or going, they're used to driving 60, 65 throughout that whole thing. So now we kind of have that entrance from feedlot. We'll have a new entrance with a county traffic. I guess that is starting to be a concern that people are starting to raise to me is how fast are we going to be able to drive within, the first 2 miles now outside of Hayes.
So that's up to KDOT. It's their right of way and their access control.
Okay.
We are far enough away so they can still have the 65 mile an hour speed limit in there. But if there are additional entrances that are installed that have to be installed closer than the 1,500 feet, is what they generally look for on that per their access control manual, then they need to start either adding turning lanes or reducing overall speed limit.
Okay.
With discussions with our local engineer's office there at KDOT, they're looking at here in the future potentially reducing that speed limit from 65 to 55 or 45 or whatever number they feel is safe for that area based on the amount of traffic.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's something that's they've been aware of, and they're aware that we will utilize the shoulder, so there may be some design changes they may do on their end that we'll partner with them on,
Okay.
but nothing set in stone as of right now.
All right. That helps me answer some questions. Again, it's not really directly related to what the topic is here, but
Correct.
as far as just traffic moving and entrances and those kind of things.
Yeah, and if you go out there now, you can see on wet days, all of our equipment leaving the site, we ride the shoulder to not deposit any mud or debris out in the roadway. I can't say for all the contractors, but we do keep a broom generally up there when we're not in the middle of our asphalt season to continually broom off the shoulder and 183 if mud gets tracked out on there. Keep the road safe for the traveling public.
You bring up an interesting point there, with pulling the debris out of our yard onto a state highway. Do you have plans for that going into the future? We don't need to
Sir.
discuss them now, but
No, we can't. So the intent was, we have leftover millings, asphalt millings at our yard here, our current yard, and at 27th Street. Not good for reutilizing in a mix in any way, because it's dry and chunky. But like we did to Ellis Avenue with the pavement there, milling, incorporating those millings into the rock will prevent more material being brought down. And then in addition to that, it'd give us a base for our seal coats we do. We order, the estimate for a chip seal is 28 to 32 hundredths per square yard, or per gallon per square yard. The closest facility for that is El Dorado or Dodge. So we order it based on the 32. There's some times where we drop down to the 28 number, so we may have 200 gallons left over. The amount that we would have left over, it's not worthwhile. We would pay more in penalties trying to send that back to the facility than holding on to it ourselves. So with those few hundred gallons each time, we would seal coat over the access road.
that's fine, but that's not going to address in the middle of winter when we're coming in and out with our trucks for salt and sand mixture and turning back out.
That's
and-
being pushed inside. It won't be pushed out towards the roadway.
I know that, but what I was saying was when our trucks come in to reload and turn back out on these highways, you know as well as I do, when we turn out, the torque will be dropping chunks of ice and sand, and we could potentially drop debris at that time.
Yeah.
Is there plans to address that in the future? And that's why I suggest, with you having brought this up, that we can address it at a later time and
Yep.
look into plans going into the future.
We will have to do that then.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything on this that we didn't discuss in private on this security system going in? That
To
we
my
need-
knowledge, no, it was,
This is what's been discussed in within private, okay. All right.
I can make the motion to move to approve PO 7825 for the installation of access control equipment at the Public Works facility.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Next, we have discharge of fireworks for 2024.
Continuing on, the next discussion is the commission's intent to approve the relaxation of resolution that was previously passed in 2018, that the county commission can relax the discharge, the use of fireworks during the July 4th holiday weekend. As you can see here, I put some statistics down. It's usually what most people think. We get more busy around the July 4th area. Even, I'll knock on wood that we don't get this year, but out of the previous years where we only had one that had multiple fireworks incidents, it's usually pretty quiet in relation to that. I'm sure that each commissioner is well aware of where we're at for the year. We are in line with the amount of moisture that we've had in 2023. However, we're still down for the year end of June. We're still down about 5 inches in moisture from where we actually should be on the 150 plus year average. I'm not too concerned if the commission is warranted with this. It's just a formality that we have to go through, that if the commission wants to allow the fireworks, it's best to do it as early as possible, so that way, I actually already saw announcements for fireworks stands going up, so that would be the only concern of not approving this, is that there's a lot of investments from local companies to buy fireworks, as well as youth groups that do their a lot of fundraising at this time of year to sell fireworks as well.
When was this resolution passed? Was that 2012 or
2018.
I guess I would like to address that a little bit because the July 4th holiday and that time, that's in our growing season. That'll be the greenest grass that we typically will have. I mean, with spring moisture, I mean, it does get dry, but from a personal standpoint as a producer in the area, we have wheat stubble would be about the most flammable material at that time, but it's been there for hundreds of years. So I don't see why we have limited this or continue to limit this going on into the future. So I'd let it open for discussion with the other two gentlemen.
I wouldn't say we're really limiting it, just gives the commission, that potentially changes every 2 years, leaves the commission the opportunity that if we do have a very dry year, that consideration could be taken, because if we did say in 2025 severe drought, the commission would still have to take action even if we passed a new resolution to ban the discharge use of fireworks in the county. So it's one or the other. You'd have to make it to approve the discharge or one to not approve. In the recent years, I don't think, since I've been with the county, the commission has ever not allowed fireworks. But that doesn't mean that things could change.
I do remember in the past, and this is going back a number of years, where the sale of fireworks was prohibited within county and had to move outside of county, and it was 100 yards into neighboring counties.
Well, this is this just
This is the
identifies just
discharge.
the being able to allow.
Right.
The sale of fireworks is different. They're not allowed in the rural parts of the county due to not having codes that are able to enforce how and where the fireworks could be sold at. They could be put up with any building with no codes to follow, no regulations on how. When they're in, like for the city of Hayes, they're inspected daily. They have ordinances that limit what type of buildings they could be in, and safety features. But for the county, they're not allowed for the sale. But
Okay.
if that kind of clarifies that a little bit more for you.
Okay, thank you.
So what did they have prior to 2018? I mean, can you have just no resolution at all? What would be the state statute then as far as
Prior
allowing
to
fireworks?
2018, we had a resolution that was done every single year, and the commission approved a new resolution every year. And when I came here with Mr. Jeter, I thought that it was kind of unnecessary to approve a new resolution every year, so we created a resolution that allowed, it also deals with the burn ban as well, but allowed the discharge of fireworks unless the commission would say no. So that way we didn't have to approve a new resolution every single year. It just refers back to the same resolution, just gives the commission the option to approve or keep the ban of fireworks throughout the county all year long, except for the dates around the July 5th or 4th holiday.
And so this is more or less for outside. This does not affect the city limits
Correct.
of Hayes or
This
Ellis.
is we
Victoria.
only have the authority on the unincorporated areas of the county.
Okay.
And this only relaxes allowing the use of fireworks around July 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And the recommendations, though, are based on using the same days and times as the city of Hayes to help with the enforcement with law enforcement. So that way we're not creating all different times. However, in saying that, Ellis and Victoria, they choose something different. They choose different days and times for their allowance of what days fireworks can be discharged.
So the state statute bans fireworks all year long?
Correct, and there's been, the last 3 years, I believe, there's been proposed legislation that allows the sale and use of fireworks all year long, but it's been brought up, and it seems like each year there's a little bit more traction, but it's not made it past to allow.
Okay. Okay.
I have nothing. I move to allow the discharge of fireworks in the unincorporated areas of Ellis County per Resolution 2018-05 on July 2nd, 3rd, 4th during the hours of 10 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Next, we have our outside agency funding, 2025.
Okay, the next discussion is in regards to the change of process on how the commission views, reviews, and allocates funding for the outside agencies that request funding from the annual budget from the county commission. I did put some information in there. I'll just breeze through it somewhat quickly, but as you can see within there, over the last couple of years, the amount of funding that has been allocated to outside agencies has increased over the last couple of years by nearly 24%. And now that we've got all the requests in for next week's agenda in regards to the request for next year, I believe it's about another 10% increase off of this year. So although the commission has instructed me with my communications to them to ask them to bring their requests in at the same level, we still saw a 10% increase in their requests. So with that, Commissioner Burgess at our retreat brought up the idea of maybe splitting the outside agencies into several groups and to determine how those funding options would be split out. And the first group, which would be, as you can see in the, I'll scroll here on the agenda so anybody that has good eyes can read it. We split everything into two groups here on how the outside agencies would be funded. So DS&WK, the actual corporation, but then subpart of that with their KidLink program, High Plains Mental Health, Grow Hayes, the Conservation District, the Historical Society, Access Transportation, and the Humane Society would all continue if this process were to be approved by the commission. Those agencies would come before the county commission each year to present their budget request to the commission. Most of these, or all of these, are tied and separated out for specific reasons. For the most part, there's statutes that somewhat link Ellis County into the funding that is allocated with them. The next example could be that they have federal requirements that if the county contributes part to their program, there's federal or state matching dollars. They have formulas that are split out between several counties that are another part that each county contributes part. That's a good example of High Plains Mental Health. Grow Hayes is kind of the economic outreach, the branch of Ellis County for economic development. Humane Society is not necessarily tied to statute with Ellis County, but they are kind of the reason of if we have strays or pets out in the county, the sheriff would be responsible if we didn't have a Humane Society on how we would take care of those pets. But they work with us in the sheriff's office to be able to take those animals out there and get taken care of. And then the Historical Society, there is some statute in regards to county's responsibility to maintain and preserve historical documents and such. So with that, those agencies, the commission has identified to continue to make their funding requests next year to the commission. The change then would be about the other 15 to 18 agencies that make their requests. There are more non-for-profit groups that do various different services to citizens of the county. That group would be identified and sent to, their applications would be sent to the Care Council. And the Care Council would then review those applications to determine funding amounts. The funding amount totals would be based on a discussion today on what the commission would like to set each year. And the recommendation that has been made was to set it to a mill levy, so that way if it was, example yesterday, and speaking with all of you individually, was actually to set it at a quarter mill. And if that quarter mill was for this year, but next year valuations went up, the mill levy would go up just a little bit, the amount per mill levy. The funding for outside agencies would rise slightly. However, in a housing decline or a market decline, economic decline, if the mill levy value goes down, the funding would also go down. and it wouldn't be determined based on what people are requesting. So with that, I didn't have the quarter mill set in here, but a quarter mill based on the 23 levy for the 2024 budget, which all these projections are based off of because we don't have the 2024 levy for the 2025 budget yet. A quarter mill equals just over $128,000. And I think with the discussion is just to keep an even number on what that would be. A quarter mill, a third of a mill, I guess, is just as easy to figure, but a quarter mill is just, I guess, a simple rounding figure. So how it would work is everybody that comes next week to the commission meeting would be presenting their budget request for 2025. However, after this year, if the commission were to set a quarter mill, those agencies would then go to the Care Council in the months of October, November, December, and submit an online application to the Care Council. Once we get our valuation and the budget process is done at the end of the year, the new mill levy would be set for 2024 for the 2025 budget. We would then have the know-abouts of what a quarter mill equals for the new levy amount. That number could be passed along at that time to the Care Council. At the first of the year, they would review the applications, and the Care Council actually goes out. I met with Commissioner Burgess, and last week in regards to this, they would actually go out in the first couple months of 2025 to these agencies, do a review with the Care Council, with the agencies, ask questions, do site visits, see how the programs are working. The Care Council would then make a recommendation. That would then come back to the commission, and those recommendations would be for the 2026 budget. So they would actually know several months earlier in the year what their allocations would be based on the Care Council's suggestion off the number that the commission would set today, essentially, what mill levy amount you would like that amount to be. It's kind of confusing for some that don't understand how the mill levies are produced from one year, because for this example here, the new process, they would be in 2024 requesting their 2026 funding. But it's based off a 2025 mill levy, 2024 mill levy, because we don't know what those futures are. So I think if the commission decides to move forward, the process will be easy to understand, and the Care Council will be more than willing to help and work with those agencies with the transition.
Mm-hmm.
So we're set with we can either set a mill levy or we can set a strict dollar amount, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could just say, a quarter mill right now, based on the mill levy, is $128,118. You could just say $125,000 is what we're going to do every year.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's no fluctuation, so then the discussion next year could be, do you want to raise that amount or lower that amount?
Mm-hmm.
But if you always just set it at a quarter amount, then it always kind of has its ebbs and flows with what the
correct
housing is doing.
That would kind of be my preference, is set at that now. But looking at it, a quarter mill would be about $30,000 less than what they're doing. So I would prefer, and of course we're not motioning anything today, and we got a budget to work through anyway, but whatever we kind of establish this year, whatever, if it comes to 0.3 of a mill or 0.35 of a mill or something, that's where it gets set and then moves going forward, instead of saying, yep, it's going to be a quarter mill, but because I don't necessarily want to start off by doing a cut, because I also know that in our budget this year, we have a couple new, I think at least one new agency, maybe two.
One new agency request.
So, and I think with this process going forward, because it's an application they can do online, we'll probably see more of these nonprofits coming forward. It's not quite as intimidating as coming right in front of a commission to do it. So I don't want to start off by, from 157 to 125 or whatever, and then not only are we cutting the agencies that have been getting funding, but potentially other agencies coming in requesting funding. Well, now you have to also reduce what you would have given. So I'd like to get it, in my preference would get it we kind of get it set to whatever it is this year's through this budget and whatever that equates to on a mill. If it's, I'm sure it won't be a round number. It'll be some kind of, again, 3/10 or 3/500 or something like that. Then we kind of get it set up there. But I think going forward, I think it'll work well with the Care Council, having those volunteers being a part of the process, gets more people involved with the public money. It also allows so that it'll be on the city cycle too. So even though they're requesting in 24 for 26, when they're doing that budget, I think it'll click after that first year, because once they go in there, now all these organizations will be on the same budget with city and United Way funding if they're requesting that, and county funding. So I think it'll work really well. But the first year it's kind of confusing trying to figure out which budget and where the money's being come from on a mill. For us it's a mill. City, I think it's tax and sales tax, and then United Way dollars, it's donations. So it does come from different areas as far as the money. But I think it'll click as far as what year they're requesting the money, and then it'll help these organizations set their budgets a little bit sooner than they typically would as well.
One thing I would add, yesterday morning I did meet with the Aging Council, and the Aging Council is what currently is used and appointed. 4 members are appointed by the commission to review the senior agencies, Hayes Senior Center, the Victoria and Ellis Mill sites, foster grandparents, senior companions, and the Western Kansas Area Agency on Aging. We met yesterday morning. Their recommendations are going to be included for your budget or your agency meeting next week. But with this process, we did have a discussion yesterday in regards to how this change would impact the Aging Council. And they were supportive. It seems like the comments that they made, that it's going to create some efficiencies, and it's going to. We had the discussion at the very kind of the beginning of the meetings with all those agencies, but it was a recurring theme throughout each meeting, was that the amount of volunteers that are willing to step up and do things are becoming harder and harder to find. Not only was that true with the agencies that they were hearing, but also whenever we have a replacement for the Aging Council. So they are supportive of this. Their request and thought that would be is going back to the volunteers, that the Ellis County Commission does appoint 4 members to the Care Council that we're discussing here today. Their request would be is that if somebody were to say, I would like to be on the Care Council, that the commission would consider them. So that way, if anybody from Ellis or Victoria felt like they wanted to be a part of it, to be reviewing these applications, that they would be considered. And I told them that I would share that with the commission. The only problem is, as you know, is you can't force somebody to volunteer. So if somebody, you have to have somebody step up to be able to want to do that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them that I would share that thought with the commission.
I have no problems with that.
No,
Yeah, that would be good.
that would be, yeah.
Absolutely. I think what we'll see, and I think that's part of the efficiencies we'll see, the Care Council has never had much issue filling their council to get people to volunteer for that. I think it's something that people look forward to being a part of. So it's a little bit bigger task than some of the other committees and councils that get appointed or to be involved in. So I think it'll work really well.
I like the thought that the Care Council will go do some interviewing and pay a little more attention to some of these agencies rather than a 5, 10, 15-minute talk in front of us where somebody's nervous. That council may be able to get the whole picture, or a better picture than what we can attain, and make better decisions. So, so that I am good with going that route or continuing to look into that route.
In regards to the mill levy amount, I guess what I would ask today is what the commission would like to set that amount, so that way when we have those outside agencies all coming in tomorrow before their presentations, we can kind of have them all in one place and we can explain. Erica Burgess with United Way she's not on the Care Council, she just helps coordinate everything for the care council when they meet. She said she'd be willing to come introduce herself. I have some cards here that we'll be able to hand out to those outside agencies, put a name to the face. That would be kind of helping collect that information, asking and answering questions for those agencies. But if we would set the mill amount today, that way it can be expressed to them next week, so that way they know what those are set. And then even though this process isn't going through the care council, we can start that mill amount now, and that'll also help the care council, because if we do use a 3/10 of a mill, that amount will be set, and any changes that will be set by the county commission before they start making their request to the care council, which would then make it easier for them to know where their allocations are already based off of mill, and they wouldn't have to worry about the perception on them making any cuts or changes based on that. But that's like Commissioner Burgess said, that's also, we don't know, because we could have 17 requests now, next year they could have 30, and then they would have to make some harder decisions.
Decisions. Mhm.
If we at least set the mill levy now, we could put that and plug that number into our budget and know what that's going to be, and then we can, and those numbers based on next year's allocations could be off that mill levy amount. 3/10 of a mill is $153,742 based now. That's just a couple $1,000s short of what all of those total requests are, or what their current allocations are for the 2024 budget. If you wanted to break it down even farther, 31% of a mill is the closest that you can get to their funding amounts for 2024. It's just over $1,000 more than what their requests are now, so it's either.
So the 157,427 on that chart, that's what we funded last year?
That's
or
what
in
their
our-
requests are this, or their approved amounts are for 2024.
Okay. That's not what the requests are that are coming next
Correct.
week.
The requests are higher than that. The total amount, and just because it's an easy number for me to remember, the total amount for everybody, as you can see, this year is $1,228,750. The total amount in the request for next year is $1,333,313. $1,333,313. So that's just over 10% increase. But those are based off all, not just ones with the care
Yeah.
council.
Okay.
And that does include the additional request that has came through for the Hayes Arts Council.
Which according to our sheet had made requests in the past, but not,
Correct. They used to be,
Yeah,
had an
most-
annual allocation from the commission, but that was, the commission made some cuts, maybe, I don't have it printed off. It was several years ago, maybe
2020.
2018, 19, somewhere around there.
1920, somewhere in there.
And they requested the same amount that they got about 5 years ago.
Well, I guess I'm good with 3/10 mil. I don't know if we have to get it to exact through 3100s or whatever. So I would set it at that. That's basically what we funded last year. I think that's kind of our direction, is to get it, the funding about the same this year, and that would set it up for next year to be kind of the same, and then it'll start fluctuating a little bit based on mill, on property valuation, not mill. The mill kind of, again, ideally in the budget would stay whatever it is, 3/10. That's what I guess I'm good with, but depending on property valuations would determine some of that fluctuation, so I guess I'm good with that.
Any comments, Mr. Younger?
No, I have no comments on that. I'm good with the 3/10 too, but I'm good with a quarter. What, if it makes it easier, but we've got a good administrator, so I know he'll make it work whichever we choose, so.
Actually plugging in the same number. He's
Mhm.
your mill, you either take it times 0.25 or 0.3, so
Yep.
it's pretty easy.
I'm good with the third. That gets us close to where we're at, and so without being too damaging to them. So I think that's a good place to start. Do we need a motion to actually effectively do that?
No, I'll just set the amount as at 3/10, and then when we go through the budget process, that allocation in the line will just be the 153,742 on top of what the commission approves for the agencies that come above you.
Okay.
And then we'll just, as the budget process works through this year, we'll have a meeting essentially that's different than in years past, just to set those care council agencies that will be there next year. We'll just have to figure out a funding formula to get them up to $153,742 based on their requests.
Okay. That's if the care council is willing and accepting of these agencies, because I don't think they've actually accepted this.
Yes, they have. They have had
Okay.
they had their meeting a couple of weeks ago and said, yes, they would
Okay.
take this on, so, yeah.
Very good. I was unaware of that decision, so, okay.
Yeah, about 8 of these, 6 or 7, they already are already requesting funding that they work, and there's about whatever the rest, 8 or so that will be new, but they'll be able to handle it, they said. So
Okay, very good.
And kind of helping also out with this process with United Way. We do try to, we're going to try to do a better campaign. I talked to Jennifer in HR already. Try to do a better campaign with trying to raise funds for United Way to increase what they also as well do. But it might be a future discussion to see as more of what the Care Council sees, what the idea is. Maybe since the United Way helps with this process, we may have a discussion to try to get, with the county commission side, a small amount to help cover their process of this for us, to help with their organization as well.
Okay. Okay. Moving on, first draft of the 2025 budget.
Well, we are at that point of the year where the hard part of the budget is essentially over, and that's getting the first draft put together. As you can see before you, through several notes in the agenda item, the budget has been put together, and to kind of start off on how the process will look, we have to finalize how 2023 came to an end. At this point, prior to the audit, which is being done as we speak and is expected to be completed in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and speaking with Adams Brown, is that our year end ended with just over 2.8 additional monies for revenue, which is always better than not having enough. But we also did good with the county departments and incoming $1.5 million under budget. So how the process will look to determine the final determinations is if this audit gets completed, we didn't know what our unencumbered balance would start with or would end with in 2023, start with in 2024, go through our projections for 24, and then add in these 2025 budget numbers, which will then set where we are looking at. However, that won't be known until we get the final audit. But with that, the budget is presented to you today. The additional, when you look at the additional revenues, the additional expenses for 2025, the revenues outweigh the expenses, which is good, which means that will help with the mill levy and the amount of property taxes collected for or needed for 2025. At this point, it does not look like there needs to be any mill increase, and fairly certain we could probably do quite a bit of mill levy reduction if the commission would like to continue with that philosophy. However, I could not tell you what that amount is at this point. Obviously, this is only the first draft. There'll be changes, personnel changes, and discussions when the commission meets with departments next week on their individual budgets. However, with that, the budget includes several of the things that we have discussed through the commission retreat, as well as what department heads have visited with you in their individual meetings that they may have had. The budget does include 7% cost increase for insurance, which is most of the increases for the personnel's costs. and it has taken into account new employees as well as retirements. So how that impacts the budget is if some of the retired people leave, yes, they may get replaced with somebody that's at a lower rate of pay, but we budget for full family plan. So we ensure that the budgets can sustain that amount of change. The draft includes the new policy for the pay administration in regards to individuals getting a step increase starting the first full payroll period of 2025. It does include a COLA adjustment that we do not know yet what that amount is, but it's estimated at 2.6, but that won't be released from the Social Security Administration until September, most likely October. Getting into some of the bigger items within the budget, we still continue to have funding set aside for the Public Works Department for road and bridge projects at the same level that has been set for the last couple years. And I think the commission is starting to see some of the results of those funding levels make their ways to the roads and the bridges in the county for those improvements. This will continue the second year of the new road, or the asphalt road maintenance program. As the next item here is the CPM course, Certified Public Manager. This is to start taking advantage of an opportunity to continue to get our staff certified as public managers. We have a little bit more of a request for the next 2 years. Next year is actually in Great Bend, so there's going to be less travel time and less time away for our staff to be down throughout the year. And then the following year, I've met with the city manager of Hayes as well as with KU to try to get a CPM course here in Hayes the following year, which would also help save on costs. So that's those additional funding for that training for our staff is in there. There has been no cuts for the transfers to reserves for capital projects outside of what Public Works has had. I've mentioned to each of the commissioners in regards to our software that we use for the county for taxing, appraisal, and accounts payable, HR, and everything. There are some concerns with the continuation of that company and what it may look like in the next couple of years. So I've met with our IT director and started to come up with a plan to start looking at other solutions that are out there. But hopefully this may not be needed, but planning for the future is what this budget is. It's not only for 2025, but we start looking at capital. We look 5 years out. So this will start setting money aside to replace that system. The commission has talked about adding new positions to Public Works to improve the amount of road work maintenance that can be done. So a new grader operator and how that position may evolve out is to be determined yet in future meetings with the commission, how that territory may look. But another floater HEO position that can help out with different road and bridge projects throughout the county, as well as a mechanic. The mechanic is split between 3 departments: the Public Works, the Noxious Weed, and Solid Waste. So 2 of those 3 are out of the general fund, but a third of that is out of the Solid Waste Fund, which is non-property tax dollars, which we'll talk about here in a bit. The commission's intent for the scholarships that we've had discussions was to use sales tax to offset the use of the scholarships instead of property tax dollars. So that is included in this budget, as well as the commission is aware of some of the facilities that are needing repairs out at the fairgrounds. And there is funding to start taking care of some of that, which we'll get into more into the process with capital improvements, but at least the funding is there. So moving on, outside of what the general budget is, we have the fire district. The fire district's fund is up $34,000. However, as the commission is fully aware, we just purchased 2 trucks, and they have risen significantly over previous years. So 30 of that $34,000 increase is to ensure that there's enough capital reserve being set aside to fund all the other trucks into the future. And then the solid waste, the enterprise fund, so this is non-property tax, as I said. Justin has looked at the rates and that we're being charged to transfer waste from Hayes to Garden City. Those rates are on stair step increase every year, and they are due to be rebid in 2025 for 2026. And then by adding that third mechanic to their one-third of a position for the mechanic within their budget, those two items alone make that that budget unbalanced. So Justin has looked at numbers for the rates that are charged for municipal waste, and he has communicated those essentially with the large operators that bring waste out to the transfer station, which is primarily the city of Hayes, is the biggest customer. So that way the rate increases that would be proposed, they can help budget for in their process, because they're in the same process we are for 2025. And those rates, those proposed rates have been shared with the city. And after this process, as the commissioners get a little bit more understanding of where you would like to see with the budgets, we would have a rate increase. Justin would come back before the commission to formally adopt those new rates. And I believe they were $5 a ton for C&D and $7 for municipal waste. And that would get that budget balanced, and the rates that are in this, the revenue rates that are in the solid waste fund balance that budget with those rate increases.
What are we currently at on those rates?
$45 for C&D and $83 for municipal waste a ton.
$83
A ton.
a ton. And we're going to go to what?
The C&D would raise 5, and the municipal waste would
okay,
go 7.
the increase would be a $5. Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Those are just proposals at this point.
Okay.
We want to at least get the numbers here for the budget, so that way we could assess what the rates need to be to continue to keep that budget balanced into the future.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, the enterprise fund, it's a business essentially, so the only revenue they have coming in is by charging fees for people to dump their waste. So to keep that, if you increase the expenses, you have to increase the revenues, which increases the rates.
Correct.
So some people don't always understand that in the general public, is that there's no property tax dollars that goes to the solid waste budget. It's all fees collected at the transfer station.
Okay.
I guess with that,
Well, there was a couple of things that you didn't mention on there with the funding for future needs of the growing inmates at the county jail.
yes. So I didn't discuss this with all 3 of the commissioners yesterday because I don't have a whole lot of information, but the sheriff and I did receive the assessment, not necessarily the final draft, but one of the close to the final draft of the assessment for the jail needs. I have not reviewed that, neither has Scott. He texted me yesterday because he knew we were talking about budgets. So the budget does not include anything in regards to what that jail may need into the future, whether we start looking at funding for a new facility. I know the last time we discussed, when we had a conference call with the consultants, their estimates, I believe, were 134 bed facility by 2050. Currently, we are only at 72 beds, so we are at already over capacity, but we're only half of what we need come 2025. And that doesn't take into account if the commission at that point would want to have a facility that we could house other people's inmates as a revenue source for the jail. So with not knowing what all that is and not having the consultants here to give you a presentation, that this budget does not include any recommendations for that. Scott and I, the sheriff and I, felt that it was a little preliminary just to throw a arbitrary number in there without having any justification as to what or how much that should be.
Will that happen before we have our final discussions on budget?
Correct. It will be either this month or in June or July.
Okay.
This is June already. So that's their anticipation. They wanted to get it out, have staff look at it to make sure there's any questions that we may have them address it, and then once that is done, they will come back for a face-to-face review with you at a commission meeting.
Okay. And staffing requests and changes at the sheriff and EMS?
Correct. The budget does not include those. At the staff retreat, staff did present different options of what they were looking at. The sheriff has requested potentially to move their deputies from 8-hour shifts, 3 shifts, to 12-hour shifts. They believe it will help retain the employees and increase morale. That's what the deputies are wanting. However, that would take a little bit of restructuring from the sheriff's office to do that. And I think they would like to do it sooner than later, but it wasn't necessarily anything that was, it was new to the commission, it's new to Scott and I, and we haven't had time to actually look through and don't really know if the commission would like to move forward with that. Obviously, one of the biggest questions you would ask is how much would that cost, what's it gonna take? And we need to get that information prepared before we can present that as a budget change to you. And I'm not sure if the sheriff's intent is to do that or asking, I believe he wanted to start that come 2026, not 2025. And then the request from EMS was to add one person per shift to change their way. As you look through the monthly reports, their call volumes is significantly increased, and being able to maintain, I guess Anita's here, I don't want to speak too much. You can throw something at me if I say too much, but that was also introductory from her to the commission in regards, not necessarily starting for 2025, but she wanted it on your radar as a change to add 3 people. That would pull the captain off an ambulance to be able to fluctuate between Hayes, Ellis, and Victoria to respond to calls, and still keep all 4 ambulance staffed after that. I think a good example was yesterday. I don't know how many calls they had, but it was ridiculous. They were very busy, but that's becoming more often than not. So that is not included in the budget. Danita and I have not sat down to see what that would take to do it. That one's easier than the sheriff's office proposal.
Okay.
But if the commission would like either one of those added into the budget, or if for Danita, Scott, and I to start working on that for your consideration, we can get that done for you if you like.
I would like to see it especially on the EMS side. I've been watching the calls and the call volume throughout the monthly reports. I mean, we see kind of the statistics that keep coming in front of us that it's getting busy, and we keep growing as a community and as a county. And so their calls are going to increase. So I would like to at least see something going that direction to increase that, to help retain, because I think that would help with the morale and retention of employees there as well. So we don't have as many turnover. I don't think we do, but I think it would help.
I think the hardest part is just trying to find certified EMTs or medics. And do you want to share anything that I'm not speaking of?
It's getting better, but I think we're heading the right way. Trying to grow our own.
Well, really, people don't care when they pick up the phone and make the phone call. They want somebody to show up, and I want to make sure that we have the departments that show up, whether that be EMS, sheriff, or fire. They want somebody there, and they're willing. They have no complaints when those people arrive, because it's usually at their worst or lowest point. So I would like to see some of that out of if we can at least look at that and look at some options of those with EMS and even on the sheriff's department, maybe some preliminary ideas on that. Because the sheriff's office, I think we added 1 position last year. That sound about right?
Well, we
One
didn't.
jail or
We didn't add a position. The talk is that we have 2 part-time positions that both essentially retired, and the change would be to combine the 2 part-times into 1 full-time position.
Okay.
And that's part of this budget that you'll see that you have in front of you for 2025.
And I don't think we added any staffing to EMS last year, other than we had some trucks that we
Their staffing
changed
level's
out.
been the same for 10+ years or longer.
And that doesn't work because over 10 years, we've grown probably, what, 3 or 5% as a county? At least. The number of calls has grown. So it goes back to the adage of trying to do more with less, and we'll effectively do less with less.
Okay. I will work with the sheriff and the EMS director to get some preliminary statistics on maybe call volumes for each, the benefits and pros and cons of 12-hour shifts for the sheriff, and try to get some numbers. And I know the sheriff will be here next week to discuss a job description change, and maybe he can shed some more information on the 12-hour shift for you for some discussion as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'd at least like the opportunity to look at it in our budgeting process before we get to our one-on-one meetings with each department, and then we can address it a little further at that time.
Okay.
I don't mean to speak for the other two commissioners. If you guys have any
No,
comments at this time?
I think that's fine. My calendar's not working. When are we meeting with the departments for budget?
July
Okay,
17th.
I'll make sure
Pull it up here real quick.
I don't know why it wouldn't be on my calendar, but it's not.
July 18th, Thursday.
Thursday, okay. Yeah, my calendar's not working. That's
Our budget calendar had it the following week, but we had several conflicts, and we did, at a previous meeting, approve the July 18th meeting
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
My only other question, just as you were talking about different things on, especially employee benefits, we set up a new PTO buyback, correct? Any impact that's had?
We had, I can pull it out of my bag here, 25 employees that use that benefit, and from various, because their sellback could be up to 40 hours of PTO. Not all of those 20 employees sold back all 40.
Okay.
So about 10% of the employees use that benefit.
Okay. Does it make any budget impact that we have to think about as far as making sure there's enough?
The estimate when we first started was if every employee did it was, I believe, just over $100,000 of a budget impact. So if we only have 10% of it, it's only about a $10,000 to $15,000 budget impact, which would be very minimal.
Very minimal.
Those applications are out to the departments right now. Or, I'm sorry, the individuals have received those forms to fill out, and they are due by the end of June. So the next budget round that you see for this those will be included in it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be minimal probably. Okay.
Mr. Younger?
I have no questions on it, and looks good.
Okay.
And like I say, if we can get some more information from the sheriff and the EMS, that'll help out. The more we get, the easier it makes it.
I think so.
Is there anything that I may have not addressed or not included that the commission had wished to be included, or we had discussed, or any option?
No, I think kind of when we have our meetings, kind of the direction, like on the 3 employees with road and bridge, kind of what we're looking at, some of where that's going to go. I know I visited with Darren a little bit about maybe some of the dollars that we spend on certain commodities, I'll call them, through road and bridge, may need to be addressed in the future. So,
And I did visit with Brendan a little bit about that last night, and
okay,
it's regards to, we are fortunate as the county, and we have low amounts that we charge for water, or that we get billed for the purchase of water, sand, and rock out of pits or property. And is that expectation going to change in the future, that those property owners may request a higher amount for us to buy sand out of their pit, rock out of their pit, suck water out of their ponds? And they're small budget line items, but hate to have those rates and then have to cut something else into their budget. So maybe increasing those a little bit, stair-stepping them up over the next couple of years was Commissioner Liker's response, and I think Brendan was appreciative of that, thinking that would be a good thing to consider. And that might give them a little bit more flexibility not to have to travel as far from a road project to a different pit, because that pit is half the price than the other, et cetera. So Brendan, yeah, he did say that they're appreciative of that, and that would help with them in the future.
Okay. Okay.
And what's the budget timeline as far as revenue neutral is concerned and those kind of pieces? Because I think we're in a good position to at least not raise the levy, hopefully decrease it, but that still doesn't mean we're necessarily revenue neutral if we're still generating more revenue than what we generated last year. So what's the budget schedule for that?
The timeline will be either, or most likely in July, I'll request from the commission your intentions on whether or not you would like to exceed the revenue neutral rate. That does not mean that we will exceed the net revenue neutral rate, but it's always best to plan that you will, so that way, once the clerk is notified, it doesn't matter if we exceed it or not by statute. That has to be back to her by July 20th. 20th. I'm going to say the 20th, so that way I'm on time.
Yeah.
Give me a few days of
Shortly
leeway.
after our budget meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
But that will be sent to her and then to the county clerk, and then the final actual R&R hearing and public hearing will be combined, and that'll be at I don't remember the exact date, September 10 or 11, 12, at that commission meeting is when we'll have the R&R hearing and the public hearing for the budgets.
Do we need to have a meeting? So our budget meeting is on the 18th with individual departments, and then we have to have our requests into the clerk. Do we need to have that, make that motion an open meeting to possibly exceed that? So that would have to be done prior to our budget meetings?
Correct. And there's no harm in, like I say, no harm in doing it. We could do it today. You could ask me to say, let the clerk know, and we got a form that the state has recommended. You can make a motion today to plan to exceed the revenue neutral rate for 2025 and notify the county clerk of such, and then I could do that. I just wasn't prepared for it. Like I say,
That's fine.
making the motion doesn't mean that we will.
Right.
But it at least allows you the option to. If you don't do that and we don't notify the clerk, you cannot exceed the R&R. You have to stay at or below that rate.
Got it. Okay. Any further comments on the budget, preliminary budget? Okay. Next, we'll move to County Administrator Report. Darren?
I have nothing, just been happy that the first round of the budget process is completed, and thanks to the departments for getting all of their information to us and in a timely manner to present it to you here today. So that's all I got.
County Commission Reports. Mr. Burgess.
Not much. I think Brendan, I met with him on Friday for an hour and a half, just department visit and just discussing roads and bridges. So I appreciate his time, letting me come in and go over it. Again, our road and bridge plan that we've set up, that was kind of my emphasis with him, is that we got a 10-year road and bridge plan to replace 2 every year, and a 13-year road plan to do that, and just making sure we're not straying from it, at least not too far, and we're not. And so that helps us with budget, and I think the county residents will see that as we get a few more years into it. So I appreciate that time discussing that and keeping things on track. And then next week's commission meeting, it's a longer one. I have a work requirement that I need to be at, but I may come in. I'll try to come in, so I may be late, just letting the commissioners know that I may come in when I'm available, but I will not be here at the start of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Younger.
I did go to the VCC, the Historical Society, the groundbreaking. A lot of people there, a lot of good people. There was a lot of good discussion. I also, and so did Commissioner Burgess, we attended the Ellis County Planning and Development with the new addition at Yosemite. Also the, I'm going to call it the Hayes Outdoor Stage down at the park. They had getting the committee ready for that to have like an amphitheater like there used to be down there. So there may, and it's just in the preliminary planning. It's going to take a little bit, but there may be some county funding maybe possibly going to it also. It all helps bring people into town and helps our economy. Then I had a talk with the city mayor on just some different projects. On the one that he was interested in a lot was the 41st Street, which is out, east of Home Depot and Commerce Parkway. Had some good discussion there. Then I guess I have a question on how did we fare out, Darren, on the hail insurance on our vehicles, or do you know that yet? Or
We, last week, K-Camp sent out 2 adjusters, and I believe we had 58 vehicles that came through we set up the fire station for a drive-through, and they inspected 58 vehicles. So significant. We had 4 buildings that had minor damage. They were there, I think, on Thursday of last week to adjust those and look at those with Greg. So the actual numbers yet we have not received.
okay,
With the storm that went through, they are very busy. So they're trying to get through all of their inspections, and then they'll get us the numbers, and then I can share that at a future meeting with the commission.
okay, thank you. Then through the outsource, I guess, did we have a leak at the law enforcement center, a skylight bust or something with the hail that?
There was a courthouse, one of those dome skylights that I think is in the walkway between the two. It was one that got hit.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was a leak or not, but if it leaked. But I know Greg had sent me a picture of it. Looked like it took a direct impact.
Okay. And again, I want to thank all of our head departments and all our employees for the job they're doing. It means a lot. To us commissioners, I'm going to speak for the other 2 and our public. Everybody's doing a great job. And then also talking about volunteers. My wife said you got to learn to say no, but I did volunteer and got on the Lions Club. So anybody listening and whatever, volunteer, because it's going to be hard to get, as we talked about earlier in the meeting, to get somebody to volunteer to be on a committee. So if you can, volunteer. That's all I have.
Okay. I'll make it short. I have no report at this time. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 10:08. Thank you, everyone.